science.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, fine gouts from bloody pockets, flesh burned black.
Please. You're with the dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-public number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, December 10th, 2007.
What's up? Oh, woe to hers. That was really bad, wasn't it?
That's almost as bad as like Trekkers, man.
Yeah. Well, welcome again to World of the Unexplained. I'm Jay Scott.
Hey, this is Chuck Browder coming at you here.
Chuck is sitting in for Trent Lackey tonight.
That's right. I'm usually the co-host of Third Rail Radio. You can check that out at thirdrailradio.com.
That's
Sorry
right.
about the shameless plug there.
No, man, I'm all about them. www.thirdrailradio.com, and that's THIRD. Anyway, but yeah, that comes at you every Wednesday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can catch that by going to the site and seeing some of our fine carriers that carry only the best domestic product.
Oh, yeah, and a lot of other great stuff on the site, man. A lot of great videos, some polls, some great news feeds, man. Check it out.
What about the girls on the poll? No.
What, Girls Gone Wild, man? That's one of the sponsors of the site.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
I think he's in prison right now.
I was going to say, after last week's show.
Oh, what, the minx?
Yeah. That's what I was referring to. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the listeners are like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Tonight we've got two guests coming at you. We've kind of mishmashed this together because we had someone that we thought was going to be on, and we had some problems last minute. But so we've got Linda S. Godfrey, the author of Beast of Bay Road and Hunting the American Werewolf, and now she's got a new book out called Strange Wisconsin. We're going to talk to her a little bit about that, not very long tonight. She's been doing some other radio interviews, and I know she's probably wore out. So we're going to talk to her for a little bit in this first segment of the show, and then we're going to have our buddy Robert Damon Schneck, the President's Vampire author, back on, and Robert's going to talk to us about some of that stuff. It's going to be fun. So you feel free to call in 877-722-7382. That number again is 877-SCARE-YOU2, and it's toll-free in the United States and Canada.
So what is the name of her book? It's
Strange Wisconsin. Yeah,
and it sounds eerily similar to what was that book of the author we had on several times? Haunted Missouri.
Yeah,
sounds like somebody was getting on the bandwagon there.
This is a little different, and I think
Really?
this publishing company is actually doing a bunch of these. This one right here is Strange Wisconsin, More Badger State Weirdness. And I have to tell you, from looking at the book, this would be a perfect Christmas gift for somebody because it makes the perfect coffee table book because the illustrations and the photographs in here. So look, you guys can see I'm thumbing through it now. Look at this, just the color. Yeah, I mean, it's really nice print.
No, it definitely, it's slick.
And it's something you could sit down. You don't have to read all at one time. You know, you could just take your time and pick a little article here or article there.
You know, great photographs. Slick, glossy.
Oh yeah,
pages.
Well
color.
Worth it. I mean,
it's
perfect,
nice.
Perfect Christmas gift. So without wasting any more valuable time, Linda S. Godfrey. Linda, you with us?
I'm right here, yes.
Thanks so much for coming on such short notice.
I think it's probably the shortest notice I've ever had. But that's okay. I'm flexible.
I'm weird like that. I get crazy.
That's how Scott does you.
We have a cancellation. I'm like, boom, I'm on it, you know. But I received this book, I guess, a few weeks ago, and I've been looking through it and reading it, and I've really enjoyed it so far. Tell us, how long did it take to put this thing together, man? This thing's a massive tome.
Now, I assume you look. I came in on the tail end of your conversation, so I assume you're talking about Strange Wisconsin.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, my latest. Yeah, that was the result of a number of years actually. Before that, I had written Weird Wisconsin with co-author Richard Hendricks, and there was quite a bit that the Barnes & Noble editors did not use. For no good reason that I could see, because a lot of it, to my mind, was some of the best stuff. It's just that they were kind of searching for so many ghost stories, so many haunted cemeteries, so many creature stories, so many eccentric artists, etc. And not only that, after that book came out, people just started, telling me about things, and I was still going out there finding more things myself. So over the course of a couple years, I had plenty to put together again for another book, and I had so much fun with the first one. And I also did, in the meantime, I did Weird Michigan, and I'm working on Strange Michigan right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of strangeness out there.
Well, how's the werewolf thing coming?
The two-legged canine creature that my publishers love to call werewolf, and that I sometimes call it, for lack of a better word, but I really prefer man-wolf, because I don't think that it is. If you say werewolf, people start envisioning Lon Chaney, sprouting a muzzle and running around with kind of a bad beard and, a Lyle Lovett hairdo, and that's just not what this guy is. He's a much worse bad boy than that, and he is, or she, I should say, in some cases probably, because there are more than one, and people have seen as many as up to 4 together at a time, doesn't have any human features other than the upright stance. And even though it's upright, and that it moves easily and very fast upright, it's not a human-like stance. It's what you would expect of a canine that's upright rather than a human, because people will say to me, well, it looked like it was running with its legs bent backwards. That doesn't mean that its legs were bent backwards. It means that it was running on dog legs, because a dog's heel is up where our knee is, in proportion to the ground. So you're expecting to see a knee bending forward, and what you're seeing is the dog's heel bending backward. Its knee is actually up more where the thigh would be, sort of. But I get that over and over and over from people who just can't figure it out and don't understand that it's just the natural, it's because they're looking at a dog leg that's trying to be a human leg but can't. And the other thing is that they'll very, very, very often say it ran real easy, but it was a little hunched over. And again, that's what you would expect of a canine that can't completely adopt the human posture, because its neck is not fused to the back vertebrae the same way that humans is. We're fused to be standing up and looking straight forward. They're really fused more to be looking downward, So it's all very, very consistent with a canine anatomy and not a human anatomy.
Now, let me ask you a question. Have you seen this terrible remake, or not, I guess not really a remake, this terrible production called The Beast of Bray Road? It was a movie.
Yeah.
Was it straight to DVD?
That's like 45 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But,
oh yeah.
But I had nothing to do with it. They took my title and went and made a big werewolf slasher movie, which it's basically, you can synopsize it in like one sentence, which is, 13 different ways for a large carnivore to maul a human being and eat it.
Yeah, it was a terrible film.
That's pretty much what it is, yeah. And I had nothing to do with it. They just used my title and kind of took the setting and then made their own stuff up.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. I saw it at Blockbuster. I think this thing went straight to DVD, I'm sure.
Yeah. But it's been shown on Sci-Fi a number of times.
Oh, God, that's even worse.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad.
They're getting residuals off of it.
Oh, yeah, it was bad, man. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's so bad. I mean, you could, if you're into watching movies that are bad just to make fun of them because they're so bad.
This is it.
That would be the one I'd recommend, yeah.
But yeah, I'd wondered if you'd seen that because I thought of you when I saw it. I was like, oh gosh, I was like, I'm sure she had nothing to do with this, and I'm sure she's just
no. It's funny because they, the whole story came out in the early '90s when I was a newspaper reporter, and they have it coming out. They have this supposed college girl with long braids and glasses, and she's supposed to be the college newspaper reporter that brings it out. So I don't know if that's supposed to be me. I was laughing my head off, at that part.
What paper did you write for?
There's a county-wide newspaper. It goes to all of Walworth County, Wisconsin, which is just north of the Illinois border. We have a lot of Illinois residents. And I wrote for them for 10 years.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
The Week. I'm sorry, I never gave the name of the paper, but it's called The Week. It's based in Delavan, Wisconsin.
I was the editor of our college newspaper, Chuck, back in the day, remember?
That's right. That's
right.
Yeah,
I got this big old English degree that did nothing but get me into law school.
Nothing wrong with that. At least you can write now.
That's right. I know how to use a semicolon, brother.
At least somebody knows something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a skill,
Yeah, it is. Now, so tell us about some of the stories in this book that you find the most fascinating.
Well, actually, one of the ones that I find most fascinating, given my creature predisposition, would be the lacrosse man bat.
Okay.
Which is a creature about the size of a man with fur and a sort of a wolfish-looking head. I guess you could say, it looks reminds me of fox bats too, fangs, fur, and a 10-foot leathery wingspan. Huh. And it was seen by two men, a father and son, 50-ish and 25, driving home at night, and this thing, they thought it was going to hit their windshield. It was coming straight at them, and at the last second, it zoomed upwards and off over the trees, and they both became immediately physically ill. And it took me a while. I went there, I investigated the scene, I interrogated them over and over, and it took a while before the son would even talk to me, but, he finally agreed to. They drew a sketch for me, and then this fabulous artist, Troy Therian, did a magnificent artist interpretation of it for the book that's in there. But it's really one of the craziest sounding things, but yet it's backed up by a lot of incidentals. And one of the interesting things is that La Crosse is right on the Mississippi. If you go downstate down to Illinois along the Mississippi, near Alton, you find ancient Native American legends of the Payasa bird, a giant legendary bird-like creature with also some human qualities. And there's also another incident of a lizard-like man appearing, crawling out of the Mississippi in La Crosse. And so it's the same area where you've got college students drowning in droves, right off of La Crosse. That's become kind of nationally famous news. So there's something really hinky going on over there on the Mississippi.
Well, we've got that lizard man story a state down from us in South Carolina. There's some kind of lizard man story there.
Yeah.
And that's just odd. You find these same types of creatures all over the United States, not just the Bigfoots, but the lizard men and some of the other ones as well.
Yeah, it's almost like there are archetypes that keep appearing, and yet people are not imagining them. And, to say that it's mass hallucination, I think that's a farther out explanation then you have to presuppose that everybody has this sort of mind link, and then you're into ESP, and
it gets really crazy.
Yeah, then it gets even weirder. So there really is no good way to explain why all these numerous people are seeing the same types of creatures over and over and over again, with pretty consistent behavior among the types.
Now, I think one of the creepiest ones I read in here, just a short excerpt, was called the State Street Demon thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has a creepy picture, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
And actually, here's the funny part. The young man who answered the phone earlier this evening when you called to ask if I could come on is my son Nate, and that's his self-portrait.
Is that really? Oh my gosh!
And he doesn't really look that bad. I don't know if it was just he was in an arty mood or something, but this group of people, told me this story, and they were all dead serious that they were walking down State Street, which is kind of it butts up to the university. It's kind of like the Berkeley of the Midwest, people call it, and kind of a free, easygoing atmosphere when this thing that looked like a normal person but spread nausea and fear wherever it walked. And they said it said nothing and had no smell. And then its dark eyes flashed silver when they looked, right into it. And this is just walking among the crowd, on State Street.
The picture kind of looks like me when I was thin. You remember that, guys? That's creepy. It looks like I'm looking at myself in the mirror.
Very similar
30
hairline,
pounds
at
ago.
least.
Similar
You've
hairline
got that
and
widow's
eyes.
peak thing going on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's similar hairline and eyes. That is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Your son's going to be a handsome man. That's all I'm saying. Wow, that is strange. Huh.
That's funny.
But yes, I mean, it's just packed full of and you see the Bigfoot stuff again and again. Now, what is this? Is this some kind of thing that the publisher is running a lot of like strange, you name the state kind of books? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I think they're going to do that in a sort of a limited way. They are my regular publisher that also printed The Beast of Bray Road and Hunting the American Werewolf. And so when I came to them and said, hey, I've got lots more stuff, and Barnes & Noble doesn't want to do another Weird Wisconsin book, they said, great. And they liked the way that it came out so much that I'm now working on Strange Michigan. And I believe they have someone else doing Strange Ohio. And they're not a big publisher like Barnes & Noble. They can't do the whole schmear at once.
Yeah.
So I think they're just kind of taking it a few books at a time and seeing, what they're able to do.
Huh. Now, I see one in here that looks a little creepy. I haven't read this one. This was called The Old Folks and the Kitchen Leprechaun. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that actually was told to me by the manager of a large bookstore. And I couldn't find a more credible witness than this woman. And it happened when she was staying with her fiance's family, and it was kind of a creepy house where the former owner had died sitting on the toilet, which, it's always I think that would have to be an unhappy way to go.
Probably.
And to make matters worse, his wife comes looking for him, slips on a puddle in the bathroom floor, hits her head, and she dies in there, too.
Oh, my gosh.
So the house ends up haunted, and...
Wait a minute, she dies looking for him who's already dead on the toilet.
Yeah, he's dead on the toilet, and she's dead from, slipping on the puddle or whatever and hitting her head.
Oh, my gosh.
And so the two people, they both died in there. And this woman moved into the house with her fiancé, and there were other relatives were there, and there were a couple of children. And children are often known to be able to see spirit beings and ghosts. They often report that, much more than adults. And they told her that they could see 3 ghosts, that there were 2 older people, a man and a woman, which sounds exactly like, the ones that died in the bathroom. But they also could see a little man with a red beard and a big pipe, and he seemed to live in this wooden box that was kept in the kitchen. And it sounded just like a leprechaun to this woman, and that's kind of what she imagined it as maybe something that was already in the house, and then the man and the woman died, they stuck around, and, it was just, always gave her the creeps. And then if you turn the page, you can see the picture that she took.
Yeah, the ghostly-looking figure.
Yeah, of this. It looks like the 3/4 view of a human head standing between her and the Christmas tree and looking at it. And it's really it's been examined by Kodak, and they can't figure out anything. And it's one of the very few. I'm really not impressed. Lots and lots and lots of people send me orb photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very impressed by those myself either.
It's pretty easy to get orbs, and I've never seen any really that I felt like reprinting or doing anything with. But this is different. This is just not easily explainable in terms of reflections or film problems or atmospheric conditions. It was in a house.
Yeah, it looks like it's a figure of a person.
It does, and it was between her and the tree, which is really creepy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Linda, I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes here where I'll let you have the last word here. I appreciate you coming on such short notice, especially after being on another show tonight.
Oh, sure, it's my pleasure.
And we'll definitely have you back on in the new year to talk about this book some more and some of your other upcoming projects. So,
sure.
What do you have to say? I'll give you the last clip here.
Well, if somebody's curious, they might want to go to one of my websites. You could start with beastofbrayroad.com. That's beastofbray road.com, or weirdmichigan.com.
Okay. weirdmichigan.com or beastofbrayroad.com.
Right.
And we'll have that up on our website later for people to check out if they want to link to it. They can get it there. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Linda. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime we'll figure out a date and I'll be back.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
That was Linda Godfrey, Beast of Bray Road, and now this new book, Strange Wisconsin.
I just saw one just as she was getting off the air there. Little One-Eyed Men of Green Bay.
Little One-Eyed Men of Green Bay?
Not only are they, like leprechauns, but they're one-eyed leprechauns.
Huh.
And from Green Bay, Wisconsin, no less.
Weird.
The picture's awesome, though, man. I would advise buying this book. This thing's great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the perfect coffee table book, the perfect Christmas gift.
It would make a great gift for anyone really into, I guess, the strange and unexplained.
That's us, man. Ding, ding. Bling, bling. Anyway, guys, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back, and we'll bring on President's Vampire author, Robert Damon Schneck. He's got some great stories. They're the kind of stories that just stick with you. I mean, the real creepy stuff. You'll see, Chuck. I don't think you were with us when we did the interview with him the first time.
I don't recall offhand.
And I wasn't either.
You weren't with us either, D? Wow. It was just, I'm sure one of you guys was.
I think I was here, man. Because to my knowledge, I've only missed one episode ever.
Yeah,
of the old Wojo.
maybe you were here. Well, anyway, I'll talk to you about it on break.
So many shows,
We'll have a smoke here, and we'll talk about it over the break. Anyway, guys, you're listening to World of the Unexplained. We'll be right back after this. And we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves.
You sound like the Ready to Rumble guy.
Yeah, well, I'm not
almost.
Yeah, I'm not a impressionist like our guest last week. So
yeah, he was pretty good. Although that was
that on Third Rail?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
You can check that out at thirdrailradio.com.
Another shameless plug.
Well, since we're on the subject.
Yeah, he was a good guy. Man, he's got one heck of a Bill Cosby impersonation.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to post that in a commercial or something.
yeah.
We'll have to get that in there somehow.
We'll have to get that kicked up a notch.
If not, I mean, maybe I'll just have to put it up on the site. It's that funny.
It is. It really is. It's really good stuff.
I can't even do it justice if I were to try.
Oh, man. Well, we've got Robert Damon Schneck coming up. He is the author of The President's Vampire, a really good book with some really strange tales. We'll be talking with him here in just a moment. He's also written some stuff recently for the Fortean Times, and he does that. He's done that on more than one occasion. I think last time we spoke with him, I believe now he is making a living full-time as a writer, which is very hard to do for you people that don't know exactly how hard it is to keep that coming in, especially when you're wanting to just write about stuff that you like. So without further ado, Mr. Robert Damon Schneck, how are you tonight, sir?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for the short notice interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime.
So are you still full-time writing?
Yes. I've been a full-time writer for quite a while now. It's not difficult if you don't want to live too well.
Oh,
Oh man.
Now you're in New York City?
Yes, I live in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's really expensive.
The cost of living
there,
up there is about probably 3 times what it is down here.
Oh, I'm sure.
You never know. Brooklyn is relatively inexpensive. That's why I live out here.
No, you're right about that. I have some friends that do graphic arts design up there, and they own or not own, they rent, excuse me, a like a 1,500 square foot flat or studio there. It's pretty nice.
I would think that would be pretty expensive.
It's fairly. I mean, I think they pay about $1 square foot, but I mean, comparatively,
compared to,
you almost pay that down here. They've got pretty good rates, like you say.
Huh. Well, now we talked about The President's Vampire, your book, last time. I'd like to talk about that a little more again, but let's talk about some of your more recent work. You said that you had just finished up something for 40 Times.
Yes, I did a piece on a poltergeist from West Virginia, although at the time it was Virginia, an 18th century poltergeist that was called the Wizard Clip. It appeared at the home of a family called Livingston, they were Lutherans, and the wizard was pretty much a standard poltergeist. It chopped things up. It made awful sounds. It was very disturbing, but the strange thing about it was, and the thing that gave it its nickname was, it would clip things. It made a constant clipping noise, according to one source, and it would clip things into crescent shapes. Oh. So they would find pieces of clothing, for example, that had rows and rows of little crescents cut out of them, which was pretty much the phenomenon signature trick. It was finally exorcised by 2 priests, and Roman Catholic priests, which were very difficult to find in Virginia at the time. There were only a few priests in the United States. And the family converted to Catholicism, and what makes the story so strange is that the poltergeist seems to have converted to Catholicism, too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the only cases, in fact, as far as I know, it's the only case of a poltergeist that seems to have converted. In fact, it became sort of a new phenomenon that was nicknamed the Voice, because the main thing it did was it would give people religious instruction and threaten them with hell if they didn't obey the church, things like that. But it also did pretty much standard poltergeist tricks. It would steal things. It would burn objects, which also the Wizard Clip had done, except the Voice, for example, wanted to show the family how much souls suffered in purgatory, so it burned a handprint into a piece of clothing that one of the daughters was ironing. Strangely enough, there's a long history of souls in purgatory burning handprints and letters into objects, which I didn't know about.
I didn't either. It's my first time hearing it.
In fact, there is a small museum in Rome that is dedicated to nothing except objects that have been marked by souls in purgatory. So it's got books with handprints burned into them, tabletops, letters, again, pieces of paper, with handprints and similar things burned into them. Well, this went on with the Voice for years and years, at least 15 years. And finally, like so often happens with poltergeists, the whole thing kind of faded away. The man who was at the center of it, Adam Livingston, he moved up to Pennsylvania, but he left a legacy to the church, where he gave them about 30 to 40 acres of land in a place called Middleway, West Virginia, which is still there. And now the land it was around the 1920s, all the legal problems had been ironed out, and it became officially belongs to the church, and now it's a Catholic retreat. Oh. And it actually has a monument, a small statue of Adam Livingston standing there looking up at a fiery cross, and under his feet he's stepping on little crescents to show his victory over the Wizard Clip.
Oh man.
Yeah. When I read about that and I realized that the place was only about 6 hours from me, I had to go see it.
I bet. So how did it turn out for you?
It was a beautiful place. I was shocked. I had only seen pictures of it that were taken in the 1920s, but now you go in there, everyone was really nice. When I explained to them what I was doing, they had a booklet about the wizard clip. I think personally that there might have been a bit of I suspect the stories were kind of edited because the wizard, the voice did some things that were pretty unpleasant. And I think they might have been kind of put into a Catholic context so that they came out as being nicer than they really were. But that's the story they have, and that's what they're working with.
Well, what kind of things were said?
Well, for example, the wizard, at one point, the wizard it was always threatening Mrs. Livingston with hell. And it finally, because she just simply didn't believe it. She converted, but it was a nominal conversion, and she was still essentially a Lutheran. And she simply couldn't believe in the Virgin Mary, and the voice harassed her so much that she finally fled her house, and it threatened that she would die in her own room, so when she got sick, she left. But then she ended up dying in her own room. But the unpleasant thing that makes me wonder about this story is that only 2 of Livingston's 8 children became religious. In fact, the other 6 had nothing to do with the church. So it makes me kind of wonder what was going on in that house all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. You would think that there would all be fellow converts.
No. As a matter of fact, the wizard clips, the voice rather, seems to have been a very authoritarian figure. Like I said, it was always threatening them. It was waking them up in the middle of the night to pray for souls in purgatory. It was a real annoyance. But Livingston became very devout, and like I said, he did end up leaving land to the church. And if anyone does go down there, it's a very beautiful place, but you do have to be quiet because it is a Catholic retreat. And when I was there, for example, there were a group of Carmelites that were about to take their final vows. But it's very beautiful, and they've got beautiful gardens, and there's a path that leads to a grave called the Unknown Stranger. Now, according to one version of the story, and this version is almost certainly something that was added on later, something that was added in the 19th century, the poltergeist first appeared when a beggar or a stranger knocked on Livingston, or possibly even a boarder. Like I said, there are different versions of it. Knocked on Adam Livingston's door one night and asked to stay the night, and he was allowed to. But he got very sick during the night and was afraid he was going to die, so he asked Livingston to send for a priest. Now, Livingston's response was supposedly, not only do I not know a priest, but if I knew one, I wouldn't allow him on my property. And the stranger died, and a few hours later, the poltergeist phenomena started. That's one story, but it's almost certainly not true. But there is this grave to an unknown stranger that's at the end of this long, windy path through the woods. They've also got Stations of the Cross and a few other things. And when you get there, there's a big cross with Unknown Stranger written across it, and people wrap rosary beads around it. It's really an interesting place to visit.
Oh, it sounds like it. Huh. So how long did you stay there?
I was just there for a day, but I had been talking with the man in charge of the place for a while, and he did finally allow me to go in. You can understand that they don't want a lot of sensation seekers coming down there because there's nothing happening now.
Yeah.
I mean, there hasn't been phenomena there for years and years and years. The local people avoided it as a haunted place for a long time, and the Catholics used it as a local burial ground. So there are some people buried there, probably some of the Livingston family, but it is a retreat now.
Well, for those of you that want to call in and speak with Mr. Schneck, you can give us a call here at 877-SCARE-U2. That number again, 877-722-7382 in the United States and Canada, or locally 336-996-1596. Now, I want to go back into the President's Vampire, if that's okay for a little bit, Robert.
Sure.
You know, the story that sticks with me the most out of that entire book, and I do not know why, was the story. Well, there's a couple of them actually, and I don't know. I always think of your book, and I tell you what, it was it's one of the best books that I've read in the past couple years, and that's saying a lot when you see as much crap as we do. I mean, some of it's literally crap, and we don't have them on, and some of it's really good. But for some reason, your book has just stuck in my mind, and I tell the story over and over again. And to a point, I stay very busy, but to a point, I was saying to Trent, my normal co-host tonight, we've got Chuck with us.
Normal.
Yeah, he's not normal by any means, but he's normally the co-host here, and you remember Trent, I'm sure.
Sure.
But, I said to him, I said, you know what, that's such a great idea, the one story in your book. I said, that there was a play about it, and I said, I would love to recreate something like that for a local theater here. And that was the story of the teacher and the gold in the mountains.
Sure.
And I can't remember the name of it. I haven't.
I called the chapter "Bribing the Dead."
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was about a school teacher named Ransford Rogers, who was really a confidence man.
Yeah.
And he was brought in by some local ghost hunters to this area outside Morristown, New Jersey, which of course is still there. And there was a local legend that for a long time people had been burying treasure in a place called Shooley's Mountain or Schooley's Mountain, depending on how you pronounce it. They thought that pirates had buried treasure there, and they thought that Tories had buried treasure there when the revolution started, patriots had buried treasure, etc. So over time, treasure had accumulated. And the problem, though, was every time the treasure hunters got near it, they would be driven off by supernatural guardians. Everyone knows the story about how pirates supposedly kill a member of the burying party every time they bury their treasure, and that their ghost watches over the treasure until the pirates can come back for it. Now, actually, since then, I've discovered that there's a whole body of work, incidentally, slightly off subject. There's a whole collection of legends and folklore involving nothing but treasure hunting and the magical rituals that you use to find treasure. I didn't know about this. This was it was one of those things you just come across and you say, why didn't anyone ever mention this before? But all these techniques for example, when you're digging for treasure, you have to do it in absolute silence. You have to draw a circle around the area where you're going to dig. And if you do say something, the treasure will hide. It'll move. So you have to start digging again. So
wow. These sound like old wives' tales.
Yeah, well, I didn't know about any of this stuff. But anyway, to get back to Ransford Rogers. Anyway, he claimed to be a sorcerer, and he said that he would be able to deal with these guardians of the treasure, and he gave displays of his magical ability.
Yeah.
Out in this lonely farmhouse, and he had an accomplice who would knock on the walls and make the sound of jingling coins and do all these things while he would do some kind of chemical tricks. Probably he would set up things with gunpowder to explode in the dark and things like that. It must have been pretty effective. Also,
there was a lot of drinking at these.
There was a lot of drinking, which couldn't have hurt.
I was about to say, he sounds like a regular Joseph Smith until that.
Wow.
Yeah, well, don't send me the letters.
Just send us, worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. We'll take them all.
Anyway, what he ended up doing was he set up these things called fire clubs, or hellfire clubs. They weren't hellfire clubs like they had in England, but fire clubs, which were a group of investors who were told that the ghosts were willing to hand over the treasure for a certain to men who were very upright, very honest, and who gave them a bribe.
Oh, wow, there you go.
So what they did was they set up this club where everyone had to contribute a certain amount of gold.
Imagine that.
And this would eventually be given to the ghostly guardians in return for all the treasure in Shulia's mountain. So what they would do is they would have these meetings where they would sing hymns and get roaring drunk.
This is awesome.
Yeah. They would. There's something in New Jersey called Applejack, which they used to call Jersey Lightning. It's a very powerful liquor made from fermented apples. And they would get really drunk on this stuff. And then Ransford Rogers would do his magic, and sometimes one of his confederates would appear dressed as a ghost. But he would lead them out while they're stumbling drunk. He would lead them out into the fields, and they would do these rituals where they would march in circles for hours. And while they did this, his gunpowder bombs would blow up in the darkness. And eventually, his men dressed as the spirits, the guardians of the treasure, would come out of the woods and just terrify everybody involved. And they did this all night.
Oh man, I find it hard to believe that somebody didn't catch on to this thing. And
well, it was a funny thing. Every con job seems obvious.
Unless you're being conned. Yeah.
Ain't that the truth, man?
It really is. It's so easy to click your tongue and say, oh, those poor deluded fools. But when it's you wandering around a field at 4 a.m.
drunk off your...
and there are ghosts screeching in the woods, it seems reasonable.
Wow. Now, there was one part in the story in the book where you talk about, I believe one night one of the ghosts visiting one of the I guess contributors, and him himself being kind of lit.
That was Rogers himself.
Okay, that was Rogers himself.
Yeah, this we'll sort of combine the two because more or less he did the same con job twice. Because the first time, I'll cut to it very quickly. Eventually, he said, all right, we've collected all the money, and the ghosts are going to hand over the treasure. In fact, it was the day that George Washington was inaugurated president for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And
what was it, the 12th president, something like that?
What, Washington?
Yeah.
I think he's the 6th or the 7th, actually.
Yeah, because
there was some sort of precursor.
During the Continental Congress or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might be. I don't know. But this was George Washington's inaugural day. And on the day that they were supposed to get all their money, the ghosts came screeching out and said something about how one of them had betrayed them, so no one was getting anything.
Yeah, right.
Now, for some reason, they didn't lose faith in Ransford Rogers. I don't know why. But he set up the whole thing again, only this time he insisted that he only wanted older men who were very abstemious and very religious. And his excuse for the drinking this time was he would give them these mysterious pills. And he said that the only way that they could take these pills, which must have had some kind of supernatural...
They were roofies.
They had to take these pills that had some kind of a supernatural quality, and the only way that their lips and mouth wouldn't swell up was if they drank.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like roofies to me.
Oh, my God. I wonder what the pills were made out of.
It could have been anything.
Could have been sugar pills for all we know. But
it could have been, but like I said, he got this group of older, very abstemious, very religious men roaring drunk again, and went through the same technique of, you'll contribute and you'll get all this treasure. But this time, something was starting to fall apart because he gave each of them some of these little packets of ground-up bone that he claimed were the bones of were the remains of the ghostly guardians, their earthly remains, and that these would somehow had some magical value. And he put them in little envelopes and he gave to each of the members of this club. Well, one of their wives was going through their pockets and found the thing, and she thought it was witchcraft. and she brought it to the minister. He wouldn't even touch it.
Now, Robert, I hate to stop you here, but this is we're coming up to the hard break at the top of the hour.
Oh,
but
all right.
Just hang tight with us, and we'll jump right in right where you left off. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. We're talking tonight with Robert Damon Schneck. The number's 877-SCARE-U2. We'll be back in just a second after this. And we're back with Robert Damon Schneck, author of The President's Vampire. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Last 20 minutes for you to call in and speak with him. 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-U2, toll free in the U.S. and Canada. Now, Robert, you were talking about the bag of bones that he was giving these older gentlemen that were drunk taking these pills.
Right. Well, eventually, like I said, one of their wives found the thing, and she demanded to know what was going on because he was staying out a lot at night and coming home drunk.
Ah, yeah.
Never done before. So he told her. She got it out of him, and she was shocked by the whole thing. And Rogers probably was beginning to think that the thing was coming unraveled because he was not being as careful as he had been. And what he was doing was dressing up as a ghost at night and coming to visit people, members of the group, to try to keep them on course, telling them to, be strong, remain true. Eventually,
keep the faith,
you're going
brother.
to get the treasure. So one night he showed up at their house, and he was drunk. And he's out there under their window, dressed in a sheet, half
lit,
toppling over, and trying to have a conversation with this man who's not quite convinced that he isn't talking to a ghost. And his wife is standing there listening to all this.
Oh, man.
And when the ghost finally staggered away, she asked him how many ghosts wear silver buckles on their shoes, because she had looked out the window. Anyway, to make a long story short, they followed the footprints next morning. It led to a spot where a horse had been tied to a fence. The horse ultimately led to Ransford Rogers, and he was arrested. But the fact is, the story involved so many men who were important in the local area that it was an enormous embarrassment, and he was probably allowed to escape.
I see what you're saying, yeah. Wow.
Now, to make a long story short, 10 years later, he reappeared in Pennsylvania doing the exact same thing. Only he actually was doing it with so many groups that he was setting up these little franchises.
Oh, man.
But once again, the whole thing finally collapsed, and somehow he got away again. And according to one story, he ended up writing the first pamphlet that was written about the story as a lesson to other people not to be greedy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The story was eventually turned into a play, which has been lost. And it was also made into an opera in the 1970s.
That's really unfortunate that it's been lost. I'd actually love to see it performed.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. Is like, Trent. I was speaking to Trent about it. I said, if we could get this, using Robert's story as a basis and digging through some of the
and get his screenplay written.
Yeah, and just to get something written about it. I think.
I know we could have it performed.
Actually, we could probably have it made into a movie. But it's good stuff. I mean, it's one of those stories I think that people would really be entertained by.
It is a funny story, and there's absolutely nothing paranormal about it, as opposed to a lot of the other stories in the book.
And
it has so many paranormal elements that I thought it belonged. And besides, I just couldn't understand how no one had ever heard of this because it's so strange.
Yeah, it is. And then once you hear it, I mean, like I said, that's one that I keep tucked away in the back of my mind, as well as the other one, I think, which is probably one of the creepiest, eeriest stories that you have in there. And I can't remember the title of this either. You'll have to forgive me, Robert.
That's
it's
all right.
been some time since.
The title is Bridge to Body Island.
That is it. Oh, man. Ooh, that's just creepy.
That's a story that tends to stick with people, and that's actually how it ended up getting put into the book, because I was writing a collection of historical pieces But my friend has this get-together every Devil's Night, or we don't do Halloween, we do Devil's Night. I don't know why.
Do you do it on Halloween?
What?
Do you do it on Halloween?
No, we do it the night before.
Yeah, it's the 30th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that what it is? I did not know this.
Yeah, it's called Devil's Night, Goosey Night, Cabbage Night, depending on what part of the country you're from.
Okay.
That's the night you're supposed to be incredibly destructive.
Oh,
Yep.
Oh, yeah, like they used to do.
Burns.
Yeah.
Did you not ever do this,
Me?
Mr. J. Scott?
No, of course not.
No.
I mean, I may have toilet papered a few yards or egged a few
You're
cars.
just afraid of your law license being yanked.
No, the statute of limitations would have run by now.
And you were a minor.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. That clears that little thing up.
So that's when we have this annual get-together, and every year my friend, who was at the center of a lot of this stuff, tells this story.
Now, did y'all do this year as well?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
This is a tradition. And I have heard so many stories in my life. I have heard people who have had encounters with Bigfoots, ghosts. Somebody saw the devil. Somebody saw this. Somebody saw that. Things. One of my favorites was a woman who was having problems because something was sucking the pen out of her. Something was sucking the ink out of her ballpoint pens.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, the pen sucker.
The ink vampire.
There you go.
Just very briefly, this woman was having a problem in that all of the ink was being sucked out of her ballpoint pens, and she would find tiny little puddles of ink in the corners of her house.
That's not a good thing.
No, and she never was able to figure this one out.
That's hell on the cleaning lady, let me tell you.
I certainly couldn't help her with that one. I suggested a pencil.
Yeah, exactly. You'd find pencil shavings everywhere then.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like I said, I have heard a lot of stories, but this was the only one that really bothered me. It got under my skin.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the first time I heard it, the next morning I was lying in bed, and for people who don't know the story, I'll give a brief synopsis of it. But I was lying in bed the next morning, and there's a part in it in the story when someone is lying on the floor, and they see the shadows of footprints in the hall outside their door, in the slit of light under the door. And I was lying in bed the next morning looking at that slit of light under my door and hoping that there was nothing out there. But the story very briefly is this, that two college students and a friend of theirs were living in Wisconsin, and it was the winter, and there's not much to do in Wisconsin in the winter.
I bet.
Yeah. So they got their hands on this Ouija board. And my friend, who is very interested in the paranormal, in fact, he used to be the librarian at the American Society for Psychical Research.
Wow.
Yeah, this was before he did that. He said that, well, let's do some experiments with this Ouija board. Let's see if we can get anything.
Bad idea number one.
Well, the winter's really long in Wisconsin.
Hey, let's split up.
It sounds like they got their hands on more than just a Ouija board, too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so they began experimenting with this thing, and there were two guys, Eli and John, and there was Catherine, who was Eli's girlfriend.
Now, are these their real names, or have you changed them to protect the innocent? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the real names. Two of them don't care. The other one does. So.
Which one cares? The girl?
Yes.
I knew it.
She cares very much.
I knew it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I can understand because she was terrified by the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they were the two guys were fooling with this Ouija board. They couldn't get any response, nothing. But when John and Catherine started fooling with it, they began to get movement. The planchette was starting to move, and for people who don't know, the planchette is the little plank, the little table the heart-shaped pointer that you rest your hands on when you're using a Ouija board.
In fact, aren't the instructions on most of these actually advocates that a man and a woman
yes.
do it?
Oh, I didn't realize
the most
that.
successful that way, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at some of the old books on seances, they will say you should try to have an equal number of men and women and sit them across from each other. It's supposed to balance energies or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, they began to get some response. Well, actually, it's more than just the man and the woman, because Eli and Catherine couldn't get the thing to move. Eli is one of these people. He has loved the paranormal his entire life, and he has been chasing after it for years. He has never seen anything happen, and he really wants to, but he never has. He's one of these people that seems to be a buzzkill when it comes to the paranormal.
Everything stops when he shows up.
It does. It really does.
Missed it again, man.
Yeah. He has sat outside cemeteries all night when ghosts are supposed to show up. He has been in haunted houses. He has been involved in parapsychology. Nothing.
I have to send him with our buddy John Zaffis or the TAPS guys. I'm sure he'll come up with something.
I bet they could use a parapsychologist out there, man.
Oh, sure. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I don't watch TAPS, but from what I understand, they're expanding this year to include psychics and dowsers and things like that.
Well, I don't watch TAPS either, and that's what we were talking about. It's so funny because Jason and I are really good friends, and I told him the first time that we'd start talking. I said, you know what, dude, I don't watch your show. That's the funny thing. We have other friends that are involved that don't have big TV shows that, that these groups have been doing. I mean, those guys have been doing it, 18 years, him and Grant. And, John Zaffis has been doing it all his life, and we know John and we know those guys. But, I don't ever, I just started watching their show, fairly recently. I would see clips and things that I thought were cool, but it's just kind of funny to.
You imagine there's only so many times they can cover ghosts, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
eventually you just.
A friend of mine said I've seen them sit in the dark already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, they do have a great show from what I've seen of it, and some of the stuff they've got is really, really creepy, and I can't explain it. But anyway, go back to your story. I'm sorry, Robert.
Yeah. So they were starting to get responses from this Ouija board, and most of it was your standard Ouija board stuff. They were supposedly in contact with a whole bunch of spirits that had never been human. They were kind of new agey, sort of good vibrations, love each other sort of spirits, and giving that kind of advice. Catherine had no problem with that. She could have gone on with that. But John and Eli got bored, and they wanted something more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Know what curiosity did to the cat, right?
That's right. And
could it be Satan? No, I'm sorry.
Well, they had also done some experiments. For example, when they were getting responses, and the responses were so interesting because each of the alleged spirits would move the board in different ways. Some were very slow. Some would use abbreviations. Some wouldn't, which was all kind of neat because they seemed to be very distinctive,
taking on their own personalities.
Exactly, which in that in itself was neat. But how much of that can you take either? Yeah. So so they upped it a little bit. For example, he would blindfold them, and they would still be able to get results. He would have them blindfolded in the dark, and they would be able to get results. He would write down questions and not show it to them, and they would get kind of results. For example, he did notice that when he asked them a question that would be answered with a number or a question that would be answered with a word, they did get those right, that they would get a number answer, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that was all kind of neat, but like I said, Wisconsin in the winter, it's boring. So they heard some vague statements from some of the spirits about something else, someone else, but they wouldn't elaborate on it. So John and Eli began to pressure the board, saying that if they didn't tell them about whatever this was they didn't want to talk about, they were going to stop consulting the board. They were going to boycott the board, essentially. And apparently the board wanted to communicate.
Yeah, it's lonely in Wisconsin in the winter.
Probably messaged back WTF.
Like I said, it's lonely in Wisconsin.
Exactly. And the snow really piles up.
Oh, man, I can imagine.
But so all the spirits left because they didn't want to talk about whatever this thing was that John and Eli wanted to hear about. Eventually, the only thing left was the spirit of the board. Now, the spirit of the board was supposedly in the board itself, and it was sort of an interlocutor that would lead them. First they would talk to that, and then it would lead them to other spirits. It kind of was like a control. Or in voodoo, for example, you first contact one god, and he leads you to the other gods. But anyway, they finally got the story out of the spirit of the board, and it took a long time because it would only communicate in dribs and drabs, and Catherine didn't want anything to do with it, especially as the story developed because it got gory and scary.
Yeah.
So what happened was they discovered that there was this character whose name spooked them the first time they heard it. And he had been born sometime in the 1920s. He had albinism, so he was an albino, and they weren't sure about his race. He might have been black, he might have been white, but he was an albino. And he was sent to an orphanage in Algiers, which is now part of New Orleans. It's on the southern side of the river. And as he grew up, he kept trying to escape from the orphanage, but he was blind. He didn't get very far. And eventually he kept being brought back until one night he picked up a pair of scissors and attacked a nurse, leaving her terribly injured. But he escaped to the train yards and began to ride the rails. Now, at some point, something happened. He seems to have, maybe he got involved in the occult or something. And he began to murder people, taking their eyes and their tongue and putting it in a sack, which was called the sack of gore. It's like a semen's sack, only it's wet with blood.
Wow.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice visual there, Robert.
Yeah.
A nice little sociopath. I almost was feeling sorry for him there at the beginning.
Well,
Can you say semen on the radio? Can we do that?
Yeah, why not? It's
Okay.
a clinical term.
That's true. All right. Go ahead.
Anyway, what he would do with these eyes and tongues was he sewed them together, and he made them into this little sort of a pet thing, which was...
It sounds like a chud baby.
Yeah, kind of. And it acted almost like a seeing-eye dog, because he couldn't see, of course. He was blind, so this thing he made out of the eyes and tongues would lead him to his next victim.
It's like his little dog, man.
Like a sort of a... Well, you see, it's never
Nasty, putrefied.
Well, you see, it did putrefy. That's why he always needed fresh eyes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've never been able to figure out what this thing might have looked like, if it looked like a little person, or I sort of imagine it walking along on the tongues like little feet.
Oh, gosh.
Little eyeball sticking up, yeah.
Exactly.
Eyeballs sticking out every which way. And it would alert him to the presence of a new victim by whistling. Now, the way that people heard, the way that this monster, because by this time he'd become a monster, the way he would locate new victims was if they heard his name and continued to think about his name, they would become a psychic beacon. That is to say that somehow he was able to lock onto them for as long as they thought about him. So if someone heard his name and kept thinking about it, he would be able to locate them. He would start to move in their direction. He would start to ride trains in their direction. And if they kept at it, he would eventually find them.
This would be a good movie, too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Actually, it's been optioned by Hollywood.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Are they going to pick it up?
Well, the guy, there's a guy who's actually the producer of a major TV show. They're very funny about this stuff. I'm not going to mention it because
No, I understand.
I don't know what the rules are, but he's the producer of a major TV show, and he wants to make it into a movie. So we'll see.
Oh, wow.
Well, we have a mutual friend that makes a lot of movies in Hollywood.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had a script for it yet.
I was going to say, I
have no idea. We just got a little message today saying that because of the writer's strike, everything's been delayed.
Yeah, it has been.
Supposedly.
So,
yeah. So, you see, the option, for example, was good for 18 months, but it's been extended because of the writer's strike. But anyway, so when Catherine heard this whole story, that was it. She was done.
Freaked her out.
She wanted nothing more to do with this.
Now, I don't remember the guy's name. I'm glad I don't
mention it on the air.
If you want, I mean, I was thinking about it. No, I think we should make them buy your book.
All right.
To find the guy's name. Where's the best place we can get that?
Well, you can get it at anomalistbooks.com.
Okay.
And you should be able to get it at Barnes & Noble still. The Barnes & Noble put out a hardcover edition.
Okay, and you can also pick it up. I have a signed copy that none of y'all are getting your hands on. But you can also pick up a copy of it at Amazon, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, yeah, right. Amazon and
it's called
one or two other places.
It's called The President's Vampire by Robert Damon Schneck. And we'll have a link up for you later, Robert.
Oh, thank you.
But we've got one from, I guess, what was it, last year we had you on?
I think so, yeah.
And last year we had you on. I think it was last year.
I believe so.
And
I remember the book. Doesn't it have Thomas Jefferson as a vampire on the front of it?
No.
No?
That's Andrew Johnson.
Yeah, it's Andrew Johnson.
Oh, it's Andrew Johnson?
Yeah. It don't matter.
All those dead white men look the same.
I was going to say, one of
to
those
me.
old dead white guys, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a great book, and we won't mention the name because I'll start thinking about it again. That story just freaked me out for a couple days.
Well, it certainly freaked her out. Because after
do you have a website? I hate to interrupt you again, Robert. Do you have a website they can go to, a personal website?
No, not yet. I'm going to put one up.
Okay.
But like I said, in the meantime, go to anomalistbooks.com or Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
Okay.
I'm going to be putting up a website so I can start to tell people about the places I go, stuff like that. Because I do spend a lot of my time going on ghost hunts and.
Oh, that's right. Can you spend another 15 minutes with us?
Oh, happily. Sure.
Okay, great. We're going to skip through our break and we're going to go on and take another 15 with you if that's cool.
Sure.
Well, we'll let you finish telling this, and then I want you to tell us about your ghost hunt because I remember you mentioned that to me earlier.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, like I said, Catherine was done, and especially when the Ouija, the spirit of the board, gave them this formula for helping the monster locate them even faster. They had to take a big green bottle and uncork it under the full moon or something like that, and a whistle would come out that would bring him even quicker.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what we want. Let's get him here fast.
Yeah. Naturally, Eli wanted to try this.
Oh, of course.
So anyway,
Wait a minute. Is Eli the guy that can't ever get...
Yeah, you
can't ever get
you're on the
anything to
right
happen?
track.
Eli's my friend. He's the one who tells this story every year.
Oh, my God. You know, we would love to get Eli on the program. You think he would be up for that?
He can do that, sure.
Oh, that'd be great. I'm thinking...
Just remind me about it, and I'll get you in touch with him.
That would be awesome. Anyway, first-hand eyewitness account
Sure.
here. But so anyway, Eli wants to see this thing happen. He's ready with the bottle.
He wants to see it happen, but one of the last messages that they got from the board before they changed, before they just gave up.
Okay.
Before they stopped, was that the monster was in Chicago and heading their way.
Oh, wow.
So that did it. That was done. But strange thing, even though they were done with these seances or whatever you want to call them, strange things kept happening. Catherine kept waking up at 3 a.m. So did John. Eli slept beautifully. The rest of them, their nerves were shot. They were having nightmares, and eventually, one day, they were when Eli and Catherine were in a place called Wausau, which is a town in Wisconsin, which is where Eli comes from. They were crossing this railroad bridge in Wausau, which is connected to a place with the nickname Body Island. Now, it's called Body Island because it's downstream from a place where lumberjacks would sometimes fall off those big piles of floating lumber, and their drowned bodies would end up on this little island in the middle of the stream in the Wisconsin River. And there had also been a horrific murder on this island a few years before. It's actually a nice little island, but these bad things happen around it. And Catherine and Eli were crossing this island, crossing the bridge to the island, and she tensed up, and he looked at her. He actually went down. She was walking along the top. He climbed down to the river because he thought he saw a turtle down there.
Oh, that was the little dog. No, I got that. The tongues and eyes.
He's down there looking for this turtle or something, and she's up there starting to freak out again. And he gets up to see what's going on, and she says, "Don't you hear that?" And he says, "What? I don't hear anything." She says, "It's a whistle."
Ooh.
And the whistle is getting louder and louder and louder.
Ooh. He can't find his dog.
That did it for her. She ran. He never heard a thing.
So he never heard the whistle, but she did.
He never heard a whistle, but she certainly did.
Wow.
Now, not long after that, he went to go see John. And John had another strange story to tell. It was he had been having a terrible time sleeping, and he was trying to go to bed one night, and he finally just lay down. And as he was lying there, he had trouble sleeping in the bed for some reason, so he lay down on the floor for a while, and he finally fell asleep. He hears this banging on the door, and he hears Catherine's voice outside saying, "John, come on, get dressed. We're all going out for breakfast." Now, this was not so strange, but he looked out the window and he saw it was pitch black out. It was the middle of the night.
Ooh.
And Catherine had never shown up in the middle of the night to go out for breakfast. And she's banging on the door and saying, "John, come on, open the door."
You sure she wasn't on a bender?
So he's lying there, and he's looking at the slit of light under the door.
Under the door, yeah.
He's the two shadows of feet outside the door. The voice keeps knocking, and eventually goes away, and the little shadows go away. And he stayed on the floor, paralyzed for the entire night.
Wow, I bet.
Now, after that, things seem to have quieted down. But Eli still has the Ouija board.
He's crazy.
It's never been used since then.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and if you want to talk to him about it, just remind me, and I'll give you his contact information.
That's going to be great.
Awesome, yeah.
I'd like to have him next week. And we'd like to have you back on with him. That'd be great.
Oh, sure.
And we'll put you both on. That's wow. That's all I can say is wow. Now, this Ouija board, was this one of those Parker Brothers type of...
No, this is an old one. This is a fold.
Ooh.
This is a William Fold. This thing was probably from the 1930s, maybe the 1920s.
Those are the wood ones, is that right?
Yeah, it's one of those great big wooden ones.
These were mass-produced as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
In fact, William Fold had a big Ouija board factory in Baltimore, and he died falling off the roof.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you make money with the devil, boys.
Screwing with the afterlife.
That's right. That is a creepy story, though. Like I said, that one sticks in my mind. Thanks for bringing it back up.
Just be grateful I didn't mention its name.
Yeah, no joke, right? Here I am.
If you know the name of the little seeing eye dog thing monster, that can also summon them.
Oh man, yeah. I'm glad I don't. Like I said, I'm home alone the next 2 weeks. The fiance is in Florida, and
it's like saying,
that's right. I've got a 5-pound Chihuahua as my guardian. I'm set. That's great. But, because I live on I live back in the woods. It's a real wooded area where my house is located, and it can get pretty creepy at night, don't you think, guys? I mean, there's hardly any light back at the house at night.
You don't live any further back in the sticks than I do.
Well, no, you live worse, I think.
No, but that night we saw the truck with the stars and bars on the front of it.
Ooh, yeah,
just sort of
that was
parked
creepy.
askew out there. Yeah, I thought I had a bullet with my name on it.
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. That was creepy. Yeah, but, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, no, there's some other stuff in your books, just to mention briefly. Another one that stays with my mind, well, actually, there's quite a few. Like I said, this is just a great book, people. Pick it up. The President's Vampire, Robert Damon Schneck. It is a book that you will keep. As a matter of fact, it's a book you should pick up right now. Get on your computer, go to Amazon, or get in your car, drive out to Barnes & Noble. They're open till 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in my area. I'm sure they are in yours. Go out there. Pick this book up because it's something that's going to be a great Christmas gift to anybody out there with a little taste for the paranormal. They're going to love it, and they're going to keep it.
Nothing says Christmas like an albino serial killer.
Exactly. But, one of the other stories I remember was about, it was Thomas Edison's, what was it, like the death?
Oh, the death box. I do remember this story.
I knew something.
It runs off of, I think, three-phase power. Is that correct?
I wrote a story about the God Machine, which was built by John Murray Spear.
Oh, okay. No, it was John Zaffis that told us about the Edison death box.
I'm sorry, it was John. Well, let's get to your ghost hunt. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. That was on our ghost hunt. We'll tell you about that later.
All right. Well, I have some friends down in Virginia who have a group called MAPI, M-A-P-I, the Mid-Atlantic Paranormal Investigators, I think it is.
Okay.
And they have an eclectic approach to ghost hunting. They have psychics, they've got guys with all the gear. They love this stuff. Lee Andrews, who is sort of runs the thing, he has been doing this for a long time. He has never found anything that he thinks was evidence for ghosts, but he loves it. I think he loves the gadgets.
Oh, yeah. I can understand that. The EMF meters and
PKE meters, the proton packs.
My favorite thing he's got, it looks like a price gun. It gives you the temperatures of things by shooting a laser beam off it or something.
Yeah.
I love this stuff he's got.
You like it too?
Yeah, I do. I just...
All men love that stuff, man.
Yeah,
I mean, you love it too, don't you?
Oh, yeah, of course I do.
Maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know.
Well, let me interject real quick.
Sure.
A friend of mine, I don't know if you're familiar with Joshua P. Warren. He wrote the book How to Hunt Ghosts.
I know the name, but I don't know him personally.
Okay, well, he lives in Asheville, which is about, 2.5 hours away from here.
Yeah, about 2
hours. And we were...
He's speeding at about 90 miles an hour, maybe.
Okay, maybe 3. I don't know. I see Josh every once in a while, but I've known him for a number of years, and he's hawking this he's hawking this program. It's a program pack called Paranormal PC, and it's basically it takes all your electronics, and it feeds all the data into the program to the computer, and so it analyzes all this stuff at once. It's really cool to watch because it'll take your readings, your recordings, it's really cool. But anyway, go ahead.
So how does that work? Do you just sort of does it go through the air into the...
Well, it must have a microphone on it of some sort to analyze the audio.
It might have that USB thing that Doug had.
It might have a laser like you were talking about, too.
It's got it
to
integrates
analyze
all
temperature
this stuff.
or something. Yeah. And maybe actually an EM field meter to monitor that as well.
If you Google Paranormal PC, it'll pop up.
I'd like to check it out myself, actually, to find
cool.
out what it's all about, the scientific principles behind it.
Well, the great thing about this is you can take this in the field with you, and that's what it's designed for because it fits on a laptop. So you put the whole program on the laptop, and then you take all of your field meters and all of your recorders, camera equipment, all that stuff with you. So it's kind of neat.
Well, you see, one of the things that I find ghost hunting very interesting. I don't actually think that it's something that's very productive towards finding ghosts myself.
No, you're probably right about that.
Yeah, but I do find the fact that it's being done very interesting because it raises some good questions. For example, why now? Why is it taking this form? What does that say about the United States at this point? Why is it that this is the first time since the popularity of spiritualism when lots and lots of people are out there actively engaging the paranormal, perfectly normal people?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what my take on it is, but you might not like it.
No, that's all right.
I'm one of those end times Christian guys. Mm-hmm. So my whole thing about it is in the end days, the whole that whole Revelation setup where it talks about an increased interest in things spiritual. Man will become so many more times smarter toward the end of time. And, you're getting into a more global economy and a more global world, just in general, a more global union.
Well, if we have to wait for evidence of people getting very, very smart, I think we're okay for now.
Well, no, I mean technologically sophisticated. Think of where we've come from 1910 to where we're at right now.
Oh, that's true.
Compare that to 200 years before.
But I just wonder what it'll be 200 years from now.
That's true. No, and that's a valid.
Well,
argument.
I think these things are cyclical too. You look back to the 19th century, and people were fascinated. When photographs first came out, and people photograph their dead. I mean, have you seen any of those photos?
I've got some of those.
They're creepy, man.
My family's got some of those.
But I think it's cyclical. I mean, maybe one every 200 years, people get reinvested in it.
Here it is. We pulled this up. I wanted to read this to you. They're selling this for $7.99. This paranormal PC thing I was telling you about.
Is that just the software? Is that the hardware?
I was told before it's supposed to come with a PC, but now I've been told that that's not the case. So everybody's like, wow, I'll take that.
It probably would have been about $4,000.
Let's see here. This one, it's an influence triggering based system. It monitors and records all the following parameters: temperature, motion, sound, luminance, infrared, night vision, video, electromagnetic field meter readings, negative ion levels / static interference, and natural magnetic fields / geomagnetic fields. Yeah.
Well, I really wonder, though, how much any of that has to do with ghosts.
Who knows?
I have a slightly different take on it, and that is that my own feeling is that a lot of ghost hunters do report an occasional bit of something paranormal. They do report occasional phenomena.
Yeah.
But I have a tendency, my own prejudice is that it's most likely being caused by the ghost hunters themselves. That is to say that
like a psychic type of
some kind of group psychical phenomena.
Sort of like Jung's collective unconscious or something like that.
More like the Philip experiment, where a group of people set out to make an artificial ghost, and they succeeded in doing it. They set out with this idea in mind, and they said, we're going to make up this personality, we're going to make up his history, and we'll see if we can get seance phenomena with it. And they did.
Yeah, then that story's also in your book, A Wonderful Christmas Gift, by the way.
Right, and I suspect that sometimes that might be playing a part with the ghost hunters, because they will have some of them, not Mappy, not the group that I've been with, that I've been on their ghost hunts, but some groups have very strict protocols, and they have a very specific way you go around it. And my tendency is to see this as a kind of a ritual magic that works. That if you go into that, even though you don't think of EMF meters and you don't think of temperature gauges and all that, you don't think of those as magical paraphernalia. If you're trying to engage the paranormal, they are. And that what a ghost hunt actually is a kind of a ritual. It's a ritual act where you are attempting to raise or contact the dead. No different than a seance or a magician who draws a circle in the ground, waves a willow wand, and burns incense to raise the dead.
I've never thought about it that way before.
To my mind, there's a real continuity. And what we get distracted by is the idea that technology is somehow that...
It's different. You're distracted by the gadget, and the gadget's basically the kind of like a talisman, like the ritual dust spreading or anything else that happened in the past.
That's exactly the way I see it. I think there's a real continuity there, and that might explain why that might explain some of the results that some ghost hunters get. I'm one of these. I think magic works.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, my tendency is to believe that there is such a thing as psychical phenomena. I do think that sometimes there is evidence of spirits at work. Sometimes, otherwise, it's a funny thing. I believe people when they tell me some strange stories. Most of the time, I believe them, and unless they're all lying, some very strange things happen. And sometimes they seem to involve intelligences that aren't the person involved. So sometimes magic works. Not consistently, not reliably.
So not scientifically.
And certainly not scientifically. But you see, I take it even further because I think the parapsychologist sitting in his lab with a white coat is also doing magic. But, again, maybe I'm pushing it a little too far, but I really do think that they are consistent.
Oh.
Oh, but the ghost hunt.
Yeah.
You get caught up in these things. We went to a place called the Wayside Inn, which is in Middleway, Virginia.
Okay.
And it's very close to the Gene Dixon Museum, in case you ever want to visit a Gene Dixon museum.
Okay.
It's a very old inn. It was opened in the early 18th century, and it's supposedly haunted by a few different ghosts. One of the manager and two customers were sitting at the bar one night, and they saw a little girl float by. There is supposedly a man whose child died in one of the rooms, and he's seen walking across a room towards where she had been staying, towards the room she had been in. And there's one ghost that's supposed to show up when couples are getting romantic.
Okay.
And that ghost was actually the one that interested me because I thought, well, as long as we're here, I've always thought there's something passive about too many ghost hunters. They go in there with their meters and their readers, and if something happens, it happens. I think you should force it. So, for example, we got a psychic to lead a seance. We did a traditional bit of magic where an unmarried girl will try to discover who her future husband is by doing something called the dumb supper, where she goes through the motions of making a meal, but doing everything backwards, and sits down, and at midnight you open the door, and the spirit of the man she's going to marry is supposed to enter the room. We didn't get any results from that.
Yeah. Oh, well.
We didn't get any results from the seance either, except some mysterious clicking noises, which we later discovered were caused by my fountain pen.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah. But the one that was really interesting, to my mind, was just the ghost that shows up when couples are getting romantic. Because what we did was...
It's a peeping ghost.
Yeah. We put a little portable DVD player on the bed that it's supposed to be interested in. And we put an adult film on this DVD player.
Okay.
And what we did was we just left it there on a loop and left the camera on and all the doohickeys, the ghost hunter doohickeys, and absolutely nothing happened. But I also tried an experiment where I took a fish tank, turned it upside down, and burned some incense in it so it filled up with smoke. Because I have this idea that if there are a lot of stories of more than one person seeing a ghost at the same time. Now, if more than one person is seeing a ghost at the same time and it's not some psychical phenomenon, then presumably the ghost is made out of something, whether it's smoke or dust or water vapor or something that reflects light so that you can see it.
Some type of matter, yeah.
Something. So what I did was I thought to myself, well, if the ghost shows up by the bedside, let's give it a medium in which it can manifest. So we filled this fish tank full of smoke, with the idea being that maybe a face would appear. Absolutely nothing happened. But it was fascinating, and it was one of these things where you're doing it, and I really was aware of the magical quality of it when it's 4 a.m. and you're burning smoke inside a tank and there's an adult film playing on the bed.
It sounds like Chuck's house. Oh, no. Put the pipe down, man.
I will when you stop beating that Bible.
Fair enough.
So anyway, if you ask me, we were doing magic.
Yes, Chuck, so is he, but that's another story entirely.
That's what I'm not even going to go there with the Bible.
Oh, man. But no, that's good stuff, man. We didn't have half as much fun at our ghost hunt. We didn't.
Well, you know what I don't like about a lot of ghost hunting is it's very repetitive. To my mind, you got to get a little creative with this stuff. You have to do things to make it interesting because novelty is one of the things that's supposed to improve psychical phenomena. And when you come up with new ideas, something is more likely to happen. At least that's the idea.
Huh.
In fact, one of the things I find very puzzling about ghost hunters is parapsychologists have been investigating ghosts for 100 and something years, and yet the ghost hunters pay no attention to them.
Yeah, I agree, and that's really unfortunate. I think it's because
a simple example: random number generators.
Yeah.
The connection between random number generators and there is some really interesting evidence to suggest that when psychical phenomena are occurring, random number generators are affected. Why don't any of the ghost hunters use random number generators?
Because they don't know about them. Well, think about it. I mean, I don't think a lot of your ghost hunters aren't really hardcore scholars by any means. And when you look back at some of the bodies of work that have been produced, some of it's very scholarly. You think about J.B. Rhine at the Rhine Research Center, which is actually located, I guess, about an hour and a half away from where we're at. We had the pleasure of interviewing his daughter.
Well, I always think of NYU and Ghostbusters, man, with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd.
You're going to turn this bad.
I don't think they ever had a program at NYU. They had one at Maimonides Hospital, though.
Really?
Yeah, Charles Honorton was doing a lot of work with Gansfeld research at
oh, yeah, the Gansfeld. You know, I've actually participated in that with Trent, the other co-host.
Oh, did you? Did you have any luck?
No, we didn't. I found out I had no psychic energy at all. Trent had a little bit, and that was about it.
Yeah, I'm not much myself, but I don't seem to interfere with other people doing it.
Oh, well, that's good, at least. I don't think I interfere with Trent.
I've seen two things that might have been paranormal that happened when I was in the room, but so I don't think I interfere with stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
As opposed to my friend Eli, who, like I said, is just deadly.
That's great. Who what's that?
Mr. Lackey.
Okay,
oh, wow.
We've got our co-host calling in right now, actually. I'll put him through. Trent, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. You listen to the show, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of weird on this side of the...
not being here.
The phone. I'll be real quick. I just got done with my GRE test, and it seems like you guys have had a really, really fun show.
We have. You missed out, man.
Been great, man.
Oh, gosh,
we miss you.
We're going to have him back on next week with his buddy, though, from the whole Body Island thing. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, I mean...
well,
like I told him...
comment about that whole thing about... first of all, I think it might depend on what kind of adult film was playing. I think that makes a big difference.
Well, I can give you the title.
Oh, Lord.
It was...
Debbie Does Dallas.
It was Plan 69 from Outer Space.
Yes. I think you need to use the Sword of the Rings. I think
the Sword.
An Ed Wood porno parody.
That is great. That is truly pathetic.
I think that's probably the most awesome concept for a ghost hunt I think I've heard in quite some time.
Well, anyone listening who is a ghost hunter, feel free to adopt it.
I believe so. I'll try to mix and match. Experiment with it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll get off the phone. I realize you guys are going to sign off real quick, but good show, guys.
Yeah, I wish you could have been here, man. Good luck on the GRE, okay?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I guess we'll see you guys later.
All right, brother. Take care.
It easy, man.
All right, bye.
That was our own Trent Lackey, studying for the GRE. What a nerd. I have an English degree.
Man.
You see what I did with it? I went to law school. God, I'm a nerd, too. It's awful.
Yes, you are.
Well, Mr. Schneck, I'm going to give you the final word, and then we're going to end the show, And then I'll probably call you back after we end the show, and we'll chit-chat for a little bit and get some more info, because I'd love to have you back on next week. What do you say?
All right, great.
And your friend, too. We've got to get her the first-hand info.
If he can do it.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
I'll talk to him about it.
All right. Well, go ahead and give us a final word on this, man.
Oh, well, I don't really have a final word, except I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday.
Buy my book. Buy my book.
I said, nothing says Christmas like cannibal pygmies, psychic serial killers, and machines that are brought to life.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it any better. Well, thank you so much, Robert. We appreciate you being on again. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Robert Damon Schneck, the author of The President's Vampire. That was a great guest right there. I every time that I've, every time we've had him on, but yeah, the second time.
The 2 times we've had him on, he's been great, yeah.
I tell you, who he reminds me of? Not really reminds me of, as far as good guests remind me of. Our buddy Jason Offutt.
Haunted Missouri.
You always get good stuff out of him. You can be talking about anything with him.
Oh, we had him there for a number of weeks there for about 2 months. We probably talked to him 4 or 5 times.
We probably did, but we just have so much fun.
But no, he was
with
great each time.
Yeah, and
never let down.
Same way with Robert. I mean, always a good guest, always. So you get some guests that are just made for radio, I guess, that can really just pull it out. And I mean, I see Chuck over there captivated by these stories, and I'm like, it's good stuff, and I'm sure our listeners were hanging on to every word of it too, just like, wow. Well, guys, we're about out of time tonight, but I do want to remind you to tune in Wednesday night on the same Bat channel, unless you're listening to, unless you're listening to us in Arizona or Washington or... anyway, okay, look. Just
tune in.
Go to the website.
ThirdRailRadio.com.
Go to the
8
website.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday night.
Yeah, you'll see our affiliates there. ThirdRailRadio.com. We're on in Omaha. But check us out. Listen to the show. I think you'll like it. If you can't get us in an area that you live in station-wise, just tune in via the internet at www.thirdworldradio.com, and you can catch me and Chuck going off about the political world of evil and what they're doing to you. We're not going to let the man get you down on that show. Let me tell you what.
We'll try and save you from being hosed.
That's right. So anyway, this is Jay Scott, your only JD DJ on the OmniSound Radio 1 network.
And this is Chuck Browder here, dropping science at you at 64,000 kilobytes per second.
Well, you can't really do the we out thing when you're the host.
No.
D, I guess you're going to have to come up with it this time. Yeah, it sounds like a meowing cat. D, get it for me, man.
Oh.
You pull his back muscle.
He separated his shoulder.
Till next week.